Imagine walking away from $250,000 simply because you did not check a calendar. That is exactly what happens to thousands of hardworking people every single month. They turn 62, they get excited, and they rush to file for their Social Security checks, believing they have outsmarted the system. They think they are finally clawing back the tax money that has been stripped from their paychecks for decades. But here is the terrifying reality. They are walking directly into a multi-hundred-thousand-dollar trap. The worst part is that people have absolutely no idea they are making these mistakes until it is already too late to fix them. It is time to sit down, grab a pen, pull out a blank piece of paper, and take some serious notes. What we are mapping out is critical, high-stakes financial data that no one ever taught us in school. Think back to high school or college. Classrooms forced us to memorize complex formulas, science charts, and historic dates that we have not thought about since graduation. Yet, not a single teacher ever explained how to manage the largest single retirement asset we are legally forced to fund out of every single paycheck we earn. Because of that baseline educational failure, millions of workers fall prey to the exact same water cooler gossip. Co-workers and neighbors will say to claim at 62 because a smaller check now is better than a promise later. It sounds like total common sense. But analyzing the cold, structural engineering of the Social Security Administration reveals that age 62 is a psychological tripwire. The system is intentionally designed with invisible friction points, aggressive clawbacks, and massive lifetime penalties specifically meant to punish early filers. Blindly sprinting to file the exact month eligibility hits means conceding an immense amount of financial power. Writing down these three precise traps waiting at exactly age 62 is the only way to truly protect that hard-earned wealth. The absolute first trap triggered the moment someone files early is locking in a severe, permanent reduction in core purchasing power. This is driven entirely by the system's early retirement penalty. Most people approach this decision by making a casual, comfortable assumption. They think a smaller check will be fine because they will make up the difference by collecting an extra 60 checks over the 5 years before their peers even get started. To understand why that logic is an absolute mathematical delusion, look at how the government establishes the full retirement age. For anyone born in 1960 or later, the true full retirement age, the precise structural baseline where a worker is legally entitled to receive exactly 100% of their promised benefit, is exactly 67. Choosing to file at 62 means jumping the gun by a massive 60 months. The Social Security Administration does not just give a minor slap on the wrist for this. They hit that retirement check with a permanent, non-negotiable 30% haircut. To put the real numbers on the table, imagine the full baseline benefit at age 67 is $2,500 a month. Walking into the local Social Security office at age 62 instantly shrinks that check down to $1,750. That means $750 is completely missing from the bank account every single month. A drop of that size might seem like an acceptable compromise for someone who is 62, completely exhausted by a grueling career and desperate to regain their freedom. But this is not a temporary discount. This is not like a car loan where the payments stop after a few years, nor does the check magically bump back up to 100% at age 67. That shrunken number is locked into the system architecture for the rest of a person's natural life. Where this mistake becomes truly catastrophic is when longevity and inflation enter the equation. For a worker who maintains average health and lives into their mid-80s, that $750 monthly deficit compounds into an absolute financial bloodbath of more than $225,000 left completely on the table. Furthermore, every single year, the annual cost of living adjustment issued by the government is applied as a percentage of the current check. Starting with a baseline that has been gutted by 30% means every single future inflation adjustment is smaller in raw dollars than it should have been. It effectively locks a retiree into a permanently lower economic tier, forcing an older, more vulnerable self to absorb the blow as the real-world costs of healthcare, housing, and food continue to march upward. The second major blunder is an incredibly common side hustle trap. A worker often thinks the ultimate chess move is to file for an early Social Security check at 62 while continuing to work a normal job or run a consulting gig on the side. The plan is to layer early benefits right on top of an active salary, double-dip the system, and live exceptionally well. This is exactly where people slam face first into the most aggressive clawback mechanism in the entire tax code, known as the Social Security Earnings Test. The government operates on a rigid philosophy. Early retirement benefits are only for people who are actually fully retired. Anyone under full retirement age who continues to earn an income from active employment will face a strict limit on their wages. For the year 26, that limit is locked at exactly $24,480. The very moment active wages cross that threshold, the Social Security Administration steps in and begins ruthlessly withholding checks at a rate of $1 for every $2 earned over the limit. To map out the exact mechanical math, look at what happens to a standard transition salary. If a person brings in an active annual income of $54,480, subtracting the statutory limit leaves exactly $30,000 in excess earnings. Because the government enforces a 50% clawback penalty on that overage, $15,000 of benefits are completely withheld for the year. Think about the sheer absurdity of this outcome. If an early monthly check was supposed to be $1,250, the total expected annual payout is exactly $15,000. Because that person went out and worked a regular job, the government looks at the overage, applies the penalty, and completely stops sending checks for all 12 months of the year. The net benefit for the entire year becomes an absolute zero. A worker goes through the bureaucratic headache of filing early, permanently slashes their baseline lifetime benefit by 30%, and does not even get to see a single dime of the money today because active income vaporized it. While the agency will technically recalculate the benefit once full retirement age hits to credit back those withheld months, the short-term strategy is a total failure. For anyone planning to earn a decent living or continue consulting in their early 60s, filing at 62 is nothing more than an act of self-inflicted cash flow strangulation. The third mistake is perhaps the most devastating because the real-world impact does not even hit until after a worker passes away. Far too many people look at their Social Security account as a completely isolated individual island. A higher-earning spouse looks at a stressful career, decides they are totally burnt out at age 62, and rushes to file for early checks without ever talking to their partner about the long-term ripple effects. They treat it strictly as a personal reward for a lifetime of hard work. What they completely fail to realize is that an early filing decision permanently alters the survivor benefit trajectory for the surviving spouse. The rules of the system dictate that when a married individual passes away, the smaller of the two individual monthly Social Security checks instantly vanishes from the household. The surviving spouse is then legally allowed to step into the larger monthly check of the deceased. If the primary breadwinner is patient, works through their 60s, or uses independent personal assets to delay a claim past full retirement age, the check quietly compounds in the background by a staggering 8% guaranteed simple interest every single year they wait, up until age 70. Delaying until age 70 grows that check to a massive 124% of its original size, establishing an unshakable, maxed-out financial fortress that protects a surviving spouse against late-stage inflation and poverty. On the alternative path, rushing the gate and filing at 62 out of pure impatience means a shrunken 30% permanently penalized check is left behind. A higher earner is not just shrinking their own income today, they are permanently capping the maximum ceiling a partner can ever inherit. In a haste to grab a little bit of immediate gratification, hundreds of thousands of dollars of guaranteed, inflation-protected insurance are stripped away from a partner. It leaves a spouse completely exposed to rising healthcare, prescription drug, and assisted living costs decades down the road, right at the exact moment in life when they no longer have the physical capability or energy to go out and earn an income to make up the difference. True retirement planning is never just about maximizing an individual timeline. It is about protecting a legacy and managing risk for the entire household. Stripping away the emotional desire to escape the daily grind and looking squarely at the structural design of the asset proves that age 62 is mathematically the worst possible moment to execute a claim. The system is intentionally designed to reward patience and penalize immediacy. Unless someone is dealing with a severe, documented medical diagnosis that guarantees a significantly shortened life expectancy, or is completely out of capital with zero other options to put food on the table, filing early is a massive concession of financial power. True financial control means learning how to treat retirement income as a cohesive assembly line rather than a single button. Instead of draining the government's highest-yielding inflation-protected asset at the absolute earliest opportunity, The elite playbook is to build a retirement bridge. This involves using traditional personal tax shields, like workplace retirement accounts, independent investment portfolios, or part-time consulting wages under the statutory limit, to fund a lifestyle during those early 60s. Purposefully drawing down those taxable personal accounts first lets the baseline Social Security benefit multiply completely untouched in the dark. By allowing the guaranteed benefit to scale to its maximum potential, a retiree neutralizes the early penalties, shields active income from aggressive clawbacks, and guarantees that the household steps into the later years with absolute mathematical certainty. Look at that piece of paper used to take notes today. If a retirement strategy relies entirely on crossing fingers and hoping for the best on a 62nd birthday, that game plan needs to be completely rewritten right now. Scroll straight down to the comments, pick up the keyboard, and type out the exact number of that target retirement age. Do not add any fluff or excuses, just drop the raw number in words or figures. If that number is 62, share if this specific earnings and penalty breakdown just completely derailed the timeline. If the target is 67 or 70, explain exactly what asset class or bridge strategy will be burned through to survive the wait. Let's hang out down in the replies, grade those game plans, and pick apart standard financial myths in real time. For anyone sick of the generic copy-paste financial advice who wants to actually master the mechanics of wealth, hit that subscribe button right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.